Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Vicki Ron, and I am the award steward for the Mythopoeic Society. And this year, I'm very pleased to announce the winners of the Mythopoeic Awards for 2020. There are four awards, and we'll go through all of those right now and announce the nominees and winners. The first award is the Mythopoeic Scholarship Award in Inklings Studies. The Mythopoeic Scholarship Award in Inklings Studies is given to books on J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and/or Charles Williams that make significant contributions to Inkling scholarship. For this award, books first published during the previous 3 years are eligible, including finalists for previous years. And the nominees are Amy Admint Radowich, The Sweet and the Bitter, Death and Dying in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Dimitri Femi and Thomas M. Honegger, editors of Subcreating Arda, World Building in J.R.R. Tolkien's work, Its Precursors and Its Legacies. Kristen Jeffrey Johnson and Michael Partridge, editors, Informing the Inklings, George MacDonald and the Victorian Roots of Modern Fantasy. Catherine McElwain, Tolkien, Maker of Middle-earth. John Rateliff, A Wilderness of Dragons, Essays in Honor of Berlin Flieger. And the winner is Amy Admint Radowich, The Sweet and the Bitter, Death and Dying in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. The second award is the Mythopoeic Scholarship Award in Myth and Fantasy Studies. The Mythopoeic Scholarship Award in Myth and Fantasy Studies is given to scholarly books on other specific authors in the Inklings tradition or to more general works on the genres of myth and fantasy. The period of eligibility is 3 years, as for the Inklings Studies Award. The nominees are Maria Sachiko Sasiri, Re-Enchanted, The Rise of Children's Fantasy Literature in the 20th Century. James Gifford, A Modernist Fantasy, Modernism, Anarchism, and the Radical Fantastic. C. Palmer Patel, The Shape of Fantasy, Investigating the Structure of American Heroic Epic Fantasy. Ebony Elizabeth Thomas, The Dark Fantastic Race and the Imagination from Harry Potter to the Hunger Games. Mark P. Wolf, The Routledge Companion to Imaginary Worlds. And the winner is James Gifford, A Modernist Fantasy, Modernism, Anarchism, and the Radical Fantastic. Congratulations.
Hello. I'm grateful for this award, and having read all of the other finalists, I want to say I'm honored to be in their company. This all started in another book. A book on international anarchist poetry networks in late modernism. I knew many of the poets turned to genre fiction after the Second World War, so I turned back to their fantasy for a hard-earned rest, only to discover it was another book. It became a modernist fantasy. The question was, and still is, what happens to fantasy when it meets modernism? And can that pair find fellowship with anarchism? And what emerges when the scholarship for each of those three areas come into conversation? For me, it's the radical fantastic. It led to a distinct thread in fantasy running through William Morris's friendship with Peter Kropotkin, the peculiar gap between the revivals of Hope Mirrlees in both fantasy studies and the new modernist studies, Mervyn Peake's identification of Gormenghast with the New Apocalypse's anarchist late modernism, and, of course, Ursula K. Le Guin was ahead of all of this when she said, "The modernists are largely to blame." She was right. While working on this book, I benefited from the support of ELS editions at the University of Victoria and the assistance of several librarians at the Bodleian, Reed College, Simon Fraser University, and Fairleigh Dickinson. My thanks to all of them, as well as to the Mythopoeic Society. Thank you.
The Mythopoeic Fantasy Award for Children's Literature was established in 1992 and honors books for young readers, age 13, in the tradition of The Hobbit or the Chronicles of Narnia. And the nominees for this award are Erin Entrada Kelly, Leilani of the Distant Sea, Yoon Ha Lee, Dragon Pearl, Hilary McKay, The Time of Green Magic, Suzanne Nelson, A Tale Magnolias, and Anne Ursu, The Lost Girl. And the winner of the Children's Fantasy Award is Yoon Ha Lee for Dragon Pearl.
Howdy, I'm Yoon Ha Lee. I would like to thank my editor Steph Lurie, Rick Riordan, and the whole team at Disney Hyperion, Jennifer Jackson, and her assistant Michael Curry, and my beta readers. I also want to especially thank the Mythopoeic Society for this incredible honor. I had to look up how to pronounce that. I hope I got it right. I also want to give a shout out to the other amazing finalists and to my daughter Arabelle Betzweiser, to whom Dragon Pearl is dedicated. Remember, foxes are totally trustworthy. Thank you. Bye.
The final award is the Mythopoeic Fantasy Award for Adult Literature, and this is given to a fantasy novel, multi-volume novel, or single author story collection for adults published during the previous year that best exemplifies the spirit of the Inklings. And the nominees are P. DeJelly Clark, The Haunting of Tramcar 015, Theodora Goss, Snow White Learns Witchcraft, Alex E. Harrow, The 10,000 Doors of January, Joe Walton, Lent, A Novel of Many Returns, and G. Willow Wilson, The Bird King. And the winner of the Mythopoeic Fantasy Award for Adult Literature is Theodora Goss, Snow White Learns Witchcraft.
The first time I saw a Mythopoeic Award was in the house of Ellen Kushner and Delia Sherman, who each had one of them. They reminded me of the lions in front of the New York Public Library guarding Ellen's and Delia's many books. Honestly, I thought it was the prettiest award I had ever seen. I'm thrilled and honored that my book, Snow White Learns Witchcraft, has been chosen as a recipient of the Award for Adult Literature. Not just because the award is so pretty, but because it has been given to so many writers who have influenced me deeply during my writing career. Writers like Ellen and Delia, Jane Yolen, John Crowley, Patricia McKillop, Elizabeth Hand, Terry Wendling, Peter S. Beagle, and Susanna Clark. The Mythopoeic Society itself focuses on the literature that I grew up on. I came to the United States as an immigrant when I was 7 years old, speaking a mixture of Hungarian and French with very little English. In elementary school, my favorite place was the library. As I learned how to become and sound like an American, the books I read were The Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, The Princess and the Goblin and Other Tales by George MacDonald, E. Nesbit's Stories of the Psammead, Frank L. Baum's Oz series, Susan Cooper and Lloyd Alexander, The Brothers Lionheart by Astrid Lindgren. Basically as much mythopoeic literature as I could get my hands on. What I wanted in my reading was magic, and I believe those sorts of stories have an important place in our literature. But mythopoeic literature for children and adults does more than give us magic or fulfill our desire for enchantment, which, as J.R.R. Tolkien said, is a legitimate human desire. It connects us to fundamental truths about the world we live in, that we as human beings are only part of that world, which is much larger than we are, containing birds and trees and rivers and mountains and stars. Mythopoeic literature places us within a larger context. It shows us our deep connection to the natural world and perhaps to something transcendent that includes that world and all of us struggling, learning human beings. In this century, we will need to figure out how to live in the universe and fulfill our potential as a species. I believe myths, legends, and fairy tales will show us the way. The old original tales, the modern retellings, and new myths that we create to embody the truths we discover. E.M. Forster said, "Only connect." We need to learn to connect not only with each other, but with all of life and this amazing planet of ours. I believe the magical books I read as a child and the magical books being written now will inspire us to do that. Thank you so much to the Mythopoeic Society for all you do. I am deeply honored to receive this award. Thank you so much.
Congratulations to all our winners, and we look forward to seeing you at Mythcon 51.